Hey guys, my name is Loveless, and this time we're back with Quirk Knife, all the way to chapter 31. And this is the beginning of USJ, of course. So, let's get on straight to it. Some students screamed, and some stood their ground, but Izuku was officially out of patience. Show, he sang annoyingly. Your favorite vigilantes have arrived. Villains? Someone amongst the students roared, but luckily Hitoshi was quick to shut that down. Ayama, don't worry. Haven't you heard of Chaos Blaze and Morphine? Izuku resisted the urge to wave at his friend annoyingly. Yes? A girl with the deep purple hair gasped. Only like the best vigilantes to ever exist. No need to flatter me, Toga winked in her direction, but please, don't spare me any applause. Dobby laughed with his deep, raspy voice and set his baseball bat on his shoulders. I've been waiting for the chance to fuck shit up. It's true, the roads have been quite quiet lately. Izuku shot a glance over his shoulder at the younger Todoroki, but the boy was simply standing there with a blank expression, his eyes on the villains appearing down below. What are you three idiots doing here? Shota nearly screeched, staring at the three of them with his hair floating and eyes glowing red. Izuku could only chuckle, walking forward and making sure his skirt swept each step as he purred. Don't pretend like you don't want us here. We're just here to cause some trouble. Isn't that right, Morphine and Blaze? Of course, they both responded at once, joining his side. Now, Izuku said while scrolling on his phone, let's kick some ass, Eraser? Or shall I say, slap? He paused while he smacked Shota's bottom hard enough to cause him to yelp. Some ass, Blaze. What's your preferred genre? Dobby hummed. Oh, putting me on the spot here. I mean, I never really thought about it, but both girls and guys, hey, I appreciate the bonding, but I was referring to music. Toga snorted. Just press shuffle before Eraser runs off on us. Izuku hadn't had the chance to put this part of his costume to good use. It wasn't good to use while sneaking out at night. Here, though, he could be the perfect distraction. He was born for this. The first note ripped out of his gray plating on his boots, and Izuku giggled from the vibration. Fuck yeah! Izuku reached to one of his belts around his thigh and pulled out something he had grabbed last minute at the warehouse, holding it up in the air. Holy fuck, where did you get a gun, Chaos? Izuku laughed at Hitoshi's panic. Oi, Toshi, it's not a gun. I don't think. Oops, probably shouldn't have said his nickname. Too late. You don't think? The greenhead shrugged and looked at the tool. Blaze confiscated the gun that I found the other day, but this doesn't actually shoot bullets. It's an edit of my own, thank you very much. Izuku hummed along to the tune that was first to play when he clicked shuffle, bobbing his head while Shota stared at him in utter disbelief. Can you take anything seriously? Would that kill you? The small vigilante laughed quietly, tilting his head to the side ever so slightly and batting his long lashes in Shota's direction. I took things way too seriously for my entire life. Let me live a little, won't you? Before Shota could pull him back, Izuku took off, leaping down the steps with Dobby and Toga flanking his sides, all laughing in pure nervousness and adrenaline. Hey, they all have a lot of emotions pent up lately, and this was the perfect outlet. Although, it was still a lot of villains. Keep up, Izuku shouted at Shota while he secretly prayed the students in 13 could protect themselves. At least with Hitoshi there, they would stand a chance. The minute Izuku pulled the trigger on the gun and began tasering people left and right, he knew something wasn't adding up. Everyone was just too simple. These villains were too undertrained. Hey, these are street villains worse than the ones that we fought on our patrol. Dobby slammed his baseball bat against the back of someone's head and watching them fall, quickly wiping some blood off his cheek that didn't belong to him. I was about to say the same thing. I actually don't think I'd be forced to use my quirk to, survive. Toga dodged a punch and stabbed a guy in the thigh. I feel like this is leisurely training. Izuku's eyebrows pinched together as he threw a set of knives, both hitting the villain in each of their hands as he ran past her, plucking them back up effortlessly. There's something bigger than this, Eraser, Izuku shouted as the man took down 4 villains at once with his scarf, sending them flying across the USJ. I know! In the middle. It looks like those are the ones in charge. Izuku turned his attention to where Shota was looking, staring at the man covered in hands. Some weird monster with its brain exposed. Wait, the third one just disappeared. Screams from above had him whipping around as the purple mist swallowed the villain's whole, and the music coming from Izuku's boots stuttered before turning off completely. Toshi! He screamed at the top of his lungs, but it was too late. A majority of the students were gone. Kaminari reached out for him, but the strange abyss took everything away. If Hitoshi hadn't hesitated, he could have used his quirk. He could have immobilized the warp villain, and this wouldn't have even happened. If only he hadn't been such a coward. Just like the coldness of his thoughts, freezing water swallowed Hitoshi whole, leaving him unable to breathe as panic took over. Moments caught his eyes as he turned over, a shark-like villain swimming right at him while snapping its jaw open and shut in a threatening manner. Oh fuck. Izuku would kill him if he died. With his quirk out of use, Hitoshi braced his scarf with both hands, praying that he could wrap it around the villain's neck with proper timing. The villain smiled evilly, and Hitoshi was beginning to grow lightheaded from the lack of oxygen when something suddenly wrapped around his torso. He prepared himself for a battle against 2 villains when he was yanked to the surface aggressively, then only to land on a hard surface. Hitoshi balanced himself on his hands and knees and began coughing up water, wincing as some dribbled out of his nose. Are you alright, Kato? He turned to see Asui looking at him with large worried eyes. I thought I was going to be too late. On Hitoshi's other side, the one familiar blonde was sprawled on his back while he painted heavily, black eyeliner smearing down his pale cheeks. Thanks, Asui, he muttered as he clambered back onto his feet, carefully peering over the rails of the boat. I told you to call me Sue. Hitoshi tried to squint to see what was going on at the center of the USJ, but there was so much going on that he couldn't even focus on one thing. Not even Izuku's messy green hair was visible. His 3 friends were swarmed by villains, along with the first adult that actually reached out to him to help him to get to Kaibu's side. Shinso, you're a little close to the edge there, Kaminari chuckled anxiously as he pulled the taller boy back. What do we do now? Just wait until the boat for the heroes to arrive? The signal's down. How are they going to get the message I sent? Kaminari, Asui said gently, calm down. We're safe at the moment, and we have to be rational. I'm sure we can think our way out of this situation. Kaminari nodded. But, Sue, I'm not good at planning. Hitoshi closed his eyes while attempting to ignore the building pressure in his skull. But this time it was worse than the previous ones. He bent over slightly as he began dry heaving from the pain, feeling Asui put a concerning hand on his back. Shinso, it's all right. We're heroes in training. We're going to be just... It's not that. He cut her off in a strangled voice, gripping his torso like his life depended on it. He watched some blood drip down on the floor on the boat below him. Kaminari gasped. Why the hell are you always bleeding, man? Hitoshi shook his head and forced himself to stand straight. Kaminari taking a sudden step back and inhaling sharply, and Asui's eyes somehow grew even wider. Hitoshi ignored their reactions and blinked, wondering why his eyes felt oddly warm. Shinso, Geto, you're bleeding from your eyes. He froze for a moment, now very much aware of the hot liquid running down his cheeks. Kaminari squirmed and turned around. Oh god, that's really fucking scary. Oh fuck, I'm gonna be sick. Straight out of a fucking horror movie, if we're being honest. We have bigger problems, Hitoshi wheezed out in pain. Look, if we work together with our quirks, we can get out of here. The villain's clearly underplanned. He used the soft fabric of the scarf to attempt to wipe the blood off his face, but it wouldn't stop dripping in slow drops. Asui put a finger on her chin. What do you mean? Think about it. They put you in the water area. Your quirk is a frog, meaning this zone would be your expertise. And Kaminari with electricity, well, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Asui nodded. You're right. They would have had to put me in the fire zone. They don't know our quirks. We need to take our time to make a proper plan since they can't quite get up to us yet. Hitoshi felt his eyes roll back in his head when something interrupted Asui speaking. They weren't exactly words, not a voice. At first, at least. It began as a sound that Hitoshi had no idea existed, a sound he wouldn't be able to describe no matter how hard he tried. Perhaps it was more of a feeling. He wasn't sure, but then the thought of a strange static noise ringing out in his skull, he heard something and actually understood. Let's sink the boat. There was no explanation, no logic behind it, as Hitoshi shook his head and turned to the water. They're gonna sink the boat. What? Then there was a loud crunch from the metal below, and the ship tilted suddenly, causing the three kids to stumble slightly. No time! No time! Kaminari grasped. We're gonna fall, and they're gonna eat us. I've never even been to Hollywood before, or even gotten a piercing, or gone ice skating. I can't be fish food yet. Hitoshi will admit the panic was rising as he looked down at the villains surrounding them. There was no escape. He gripped his scarf in one hand and using the other to feel around what he held in his utility belt, smiling slowly. I can barely control 3 people at once, he admitted. There's no point with my quirk. Luckily, quirks aren't everything, at least in my case. Denki never really had friends. You would think with his natural ability to socialize and the lack of comeliness, he would be able to make new friends easily whenever he wanted. As a child, things were never easy, yet no one would ever know. No one would understand what Denki did, what made him a monster. He tried to smile for everyone, but that also became too much, and some days Denki felt like he could barely get himself out of bed. It had been easier, of course, ever since his mother left, but that didn't mean it was easy. His father did everything he could to keep Denki afloat and tried to help him, but it was clear sometimes that he even thought his son was too far gone to ever help. People called him loud, annoying, weird, stupid. The list goes on and on with UA. Denki thought things would change for the better. They didn't. His classmates saw him as the class idiot, laughing at him during all of the wee hours, thinking that he wouldn't remember all the jokes they made. But he did remember. He just didn't have the confidence to say anything. They just saw him as stupid anyways. But then there was him. A boy that never called him stupid or annoying or useless. A boy that didn't find his yay episodes funny and even scowled at those who made mean jokes. Sure, he made little complaints here and there, but it was nothing to do with Denki because the boy did that with everyone. It was just his personality. And Denki hated his quirk. It was weak, humiliating, and dangerous. Sometimes he knew deep down he could never be a hero. But he made a promise when he was younger. So he was going to at least do his best to follow through with it. He wanted to help the others, and he didn't want to be a coward anymore. So he'll admit when Hitoshi gripped on his shoulders with confidence and asked him that question, he wasn't tossed back into some sort of panic attack, nor did tears fill his eyes. He didn't lose himself in memories and instead mustered up a determined expression. Yes, he answered. I've been a bomb before. Great. Shinso smiled at him, although it wasn't his usual grin, because this time his teeth was covered in blood. Icky. And you conduct your own electricity, right? So, do you actually electrocute yourself? Denki rubbed the back of his neck. To an extent. But not as bad as those around me. I won't die. If that's what you're asking. Shinso nodded. Okay. So, you can do this for me, right? Wait. You want me to jump in there with all the villains? What if one evades my quirk? I'll be in my stupid mode and get crunched. Denki could feel the panic rising. And honestly, the villains were just an excuse. He couldn't care less if he was attacked right now, because if he did what Shinso wanted him to do, then it will happen all over again. And I won't let that happen. His voice was stern and confident, and Denki couldn't help but feel less fearful with Shinso at his side. You won't? Never. And so Shinso explained his plan while the ship continued sinking. Sue nodded along in agreement. Denki was hesitant. He was always hesitant when it came to his quirk, but the other two were depending on him to follow through. Now or never, Blondie, Shinso said, and Denki didn't hesitate, standing on the rail facing the water. Cannonball! He screamed in false confidence as he leaped off, plugging his nose and feeling the electricity current pass through his body only a little. Holding back his current was never easy, because his quirk controlled him even though it should be the other way around. But he had to try, because he learned from last time. The second his body made contact in the water, his electricity went out of control, and he held his nose even as the smell of burning flesh began to sneak into his hold. Everything went fuzzy and numb in the oh-so-familiar way. Villains shrieking around him as he slowly descended into the way mode. At least that meant the anxiety was being shocked away. It was when his favorite lavender scarf wrapped around his body and electricity stopped flowing as Denki was ripped out of the sky, a shriek escaping his mouth as he dangled from below Shinso, and Sue was holding on to... Wait, why was he even more lucid than normal? Brace yourselves! Shinso cried as he pulled something out of his belt and pressed a button, a massive horn ringing out. No doubt every single person near USJ heard it, even if they were unconscious. The sound wave propelled them further towards the rocks, and Sue's eyes widened. How were you planning to land? Shinso cringed. Hope for the best? And Denki couldn't help but scream, closing his eyes and preparing himself for death. This was it. After all, goodbye, cruel world. Denki's back hit something cold and solid and began sliding downward. Shinso, still holding on to the scarf tightly that was attached to him, he caught the concrete edge and rolled. Sue and Shinso both landed right on him. They groaned quietly. Do you guys ever think anything through? Denki, who despite more lucid than normal, was still halfway in his way mode, couldn't help himself as he beamed. Elsa. Katsuki struggled with his footing as he finally met the actual fucking earth once more, slim eyes snapping around and analyzing everything in his vicinity. You're dead meat. Katsuki rolled around as a villain with knives as fingers dove for him with the familiar redhead put himself between the two. Tanned and freckled skin rock hard. I don't think so. Shitty Hair laughed as an audible sound of metal cracking echoed through the dark building. The villain shouted in agony. I could have done that my fucking self, Katsuki shouted. Katsuki shook his head as he brought himself back down to reality. I don't need your help. Shitty Hair looked at him with the pointy teeth and a blinding smile. Okay, I didn't really ask for your opinion though. What the fuck did you just say to me? Shitty Hair sidestepped him as his solid fist met another villain's stomach, sending the bastard flying across the room into the far wall. I said I didn't ask for your opinion, he repeated with the same cheerful tone. Katsuki roared in anger. Who the fuck did this extra think he was? Katsuki was stronger than he would ever be. Fuck what his therapist said about the whole humble bullshit. Eat my fucking fist, he screamed at the nearest villain, setting off a chain of explosions without any care for Shitty Hair's location. He had the stupid rock quirk. He'll be fine. Probably. It went like that for several minutes as villains continued to flood the room. Shitty Hair shouting, How many are there? Damn! Who the fuck cares? More to explode. Katsuki snapped and sent the final villain down the stairs with an explosion, then dusted his hands off with his cargo pants. Now what? Shitty Hair asked, still standing there with a stupid smile, despite the shallow gash across his torso and forming a black eye. The fuck are you asking me for? Go away. Katsuki stumped towards Shitty Hair. I already told you I didn't need your help, Extra. Extra? The redhead giggled. I thought I was shitty hair. You are shitty hair. No, you. Are you fucking 5 years old? The nerd's eyes widen as he reached for Katsuki. Watch out, bro. Die, fucker. And for once, that wasn't Katsuki. A blur of pink arched over Katsuki like some sort of gymnastic doing a flip, following by a evil laugh as they landed right on the villain that had been lunging for Katsuki. Broken shards of knives outstretched. The villain screamed as his skin on his shoulders began melting away, pain bringing them to an unconscious state as the extra popped back up. Damn, you boys gotta be aware of your surroundings. The girl flicked some acid stains off her fingertips and then wiped the blood from her nose with the back of her hand. Seems you took care of this floor. This floor? Shitty Hair cried. There are more villains below, too? Not anymore. She clapped her hands together. We should get moving. How many did you take out, Ashido? There were tons up here. Ash blah blah shrugged and looked around the room. I don't know. Probably the same amount of you guys? Maybe a few more? Katsuki rolled his eyes. Fucking whatever. You probably got the easier ones. Now fuck off and let me do my shit. Of course they fucking skipped after him. He turned on his heel and stomped down the stairs, stopping on the floor where Pinky must have fought. Bodies were spewed everywhere. While all the villains were groaning in pain and discomfort, Shitty Hair gasped from behind him. Ashido, are you sure you didn't kill anyone? Well, I'm not a murderer. I just melted some skin. It's not that big of a deal. Katsuki bit his tongue, because this girl really did take down more villains than Shitty Hair and himself combined, all on her own. What was her name? Ashido? Katsuki looked out the window towards the center of the dome, only to see 3 people arch over the lake, a huge ramp of ice catching them, gliding them down from half and half. Katsuki probably would have let them go splat, just like Deku most likely did. Come on. Shitty Hair tugged on his hand. We gotta go, bro. We need to make sure our other classmates are okay. Katsuki kicked the door down and stepped out, stomping in the direction of the stars. What are you doing? Ashido grunted. Aizawa was expecting us to make our way for the stairs, so that's what we should be doing. Not those extras thinking Katsuki Bakugo was going to run away from villains. He wasn't weak like them. He wasn't. Green eyes flashed behind his own, and he blinked them away. No, he wasn't running away because Deku wouldn't either. Deku didn't run away from sludge monsters. Even though Yue keeps telling him that he was imagining things, how do you still make that shit up? Why would Katsuki ever see Deku if that wasn't actually him? With a newfound drive, Katsuki picked up the pace and broke into a run towards the center. Ashido swearing colorfully before breaking out into a run sprinting beside him. There was a few moments of quiet whining from behind him, but Katsuki heard Shitty Hair huff. Wait for me! Katsuki didn't slow down as the 3 bolted along the outskirts of the main area, staying low as to not attract attention. He spotted Racerhead not too far away as he launched the villain through the air with his scarf, the woman landing completely unconscious. Katsuki's eyes shifted to the 3 vigilantes. He recognized them from earlier, now that he thought about it. Their names had definitely been trending on Twitter before. Actually, they trend pretty often. Before he had the chance to turn his attention back in front of him, he ran into someone and stumbled back, the purple insomniac looking down on him with a pinched expression. Watch it. It is all the boy grunted, then turning back around before Katsuki even had a chance to cuss him out. Fucking bastard. Said bastard was currently holding Sparky like some sort of lapdog under one arm. The blonde looked a little out of it if his eyes wandered the area. Why is half the class here? Ashido asked as she crouched down behind a rock, Shitty Hair doing the same. Half the class? Frog Girl tilted her head. There's only 7 of us. Nearly half the class, Ashido repeated. With the 7 students all hiding behind several rocks, watching the center, the 4 fighters finally reached the big villains. I swear to God. Katsuki heard the purple insomniac mumble. For fuck's sake, I can't tell that whore anything. What? Watch out! The vigilante with white hair shouted at the green chick, who expertly evaded something a villain had thrown at her and bashed him in the head. Bastard! Katsuki heard her sneer as she turned back to her other partner and Aizawa. Ah, this must be the final boss. Katsuki swallowed a lump in his throat, because that curly green hair put him on edge for obvious reasons. She reminded him of someone that was gone. Izuku was trying to seem in control and calm, but it was growing more and more difficult as his adrenaline just kept feeding him more violent urges. With the very strong taser gun, dozens of knives and daggers, little trinkets and tools constructed along with the fact that Izuku's hands are rated E for everyone, keeping himself reined in wasn't always easy. What a surprise, the man covered in hands smiled. I get to kill the 3 vigilantes myself. I must say, you two look awfully familiar. He pointed to Toga and Dabi with one hand each, wrist limp as if it was an everyday action. You guys were meant to be mine. If you don't work for me, then I'll show you the consequences. Alright, let's tone it down, you poor excuse of a hand job. What the fuck do you want from a group of school children? Is this how you get off or some shit? Because that's a pretty weird kink, and I'm not one to judge usually. Izuku took a step forward with his hands on his hip, knives tucked between his knuckles. It seemed like that was the wrong thing to say as the young man began scratching his neck until streaks of red began to peek through the phantom touch on Izuku's skin began to twitch. No. He had to stay focused. This isn't fair, the man shouted as Izuku exchanged a confused glance at Shota. He was supposed to be here. I was supposed to cleanse the fucking hero society. Of who? Shota jutted out his chin while holding his capture scarf, ready to pounce if needed. Of the symbol of peace, fucking obviously. Obviously. Izuku echoed in mocking tone. I guess you didn't plan right. Shame. Better luck next time. Bye. The villain took a step forward as the one with the yellow eyes advanced as well. Tomura, let's not be hasty. You'll have many opportunities to destroy the heroes. As I've said, a student has escaped and the heroes will arrive soon. We should flee while we still have the chance. Not all has failed. You have proven yourself. The time will come for you to take down the symbol of peace. The itching stopped, and Tomura's red eyes wavered. You're right, Karigiri. All Might might not be here, but I can at least damage his pride by taking out those he should have been here to save. Shoto's eyes grew panicked as they flickered to the left. Izuku taking the risk and doing the same. Oh fuck. Squatted behind rocks, and none other than Hitoshi, Kachan, Kaminari, Ashido, Frog Girl, Shota, and Redhead, completely oblivious to the danger they were currently putting themselves in. Time to distract. Tomura, was it? The villain looked back at him and tilted his head. What the fuck do you want? I'm busy. Aren't we all? Izuku chuckled awkwardly while waving one hand. But before you get back to it, why would you even want to destroy the symbol of peace? I mean, I get it'll give you a fuck ton of street cred, but isn't that, impossible? Tomura hissed. Of course not. But someone naive as you would say something like that. Rude? The symbol of peace will fall by my hands, because I brought the perfect weapon that even All Might wouldn't be able to defeat, let alone some useless vigilante like you. Izuku nodded and tucked a curl behind his ears. I'm assuming it's that thing. Tomura looked at the monster in which Izuku was pointing at. Yes. Dabi snorted and elbowed him harshly. Yeah, looks really scary. I know, I don't want to fight that fucker. The only flaw I do see in your plan, though, well, you clearly underestimated the students. They've been taking down the villains left and right. Plus, us 3 are here. To be fair, though, there was no way you can plan for that obstacle, so I'll let that slide. No, these morons I brought here were expendable. Expendable? They're not important in the long run. Izuku noticed Toga and Dabi slowly inching towards the kids at the rocks. Good. They understand the game that Izuku was playing right now. He continued, but then what is your goal for the long run if you've gotten rid of all your players? My goal? To kill All Might. Were you not fucking listening? Tomura clenched his dry hands and shaking his fist to the side of his hip and literally growling like a feral animal. No, I mean beyond that. You'll kill All Might, okay, then what? The villain stuttered mid-step, and his crimson eyes locked onto Izuku. Brows underneath the hand plastered onto his face frowned. Then, this is just the beginning. The hero society is broken, so I'm going to take them down. Heroes these days don't deserve the fame and fortune they get. They're all faceless assholes. That's it. I agree. Both Shota and the villains looked in his directions wearing equally confused expressions. What? I agree, of course. Izuku suddenly felt bare and vulnerable as he continued. Look where I am now. Do you think society has been very kind to me? I'm currently a homeless kid that commits illegal actions of vigilantism in my daily life. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. No hero has come to save me, or they didn't when I was just a little kid either. I had to fend for myself because, I guess, I wasn't worth the effort to save. This was risky with Kacchan around the corner, but Tomura's full attention was on him. Kind? Society hasn't been kind to you? You think you've had it hard? Tomura spat. You have nothing to complain about compared to me. You don't know anything about me, and you don't know anything about me. The comment was ignorant, just like a hero would say. The air grew tense, and Izuku realized what slipped from his lips. Yet, his forest eyes widened in a fraction as Tomura clawed at his neck once more. No. You're nothing but a brat. A pebble in my path. A player I can get rid of to level up. Izuku felt Shota grab his wrist and pull him closer. Leave now and we won't have to do this. Being completely ignored, Tomura laughed in a grovelly tone. You've done well against the D-lister villains, so let this be the real test of your skills. Chaos, was it? Izuku looked back up to Tomura as his confidence wavered. What does that mean, Facepalm? Nomu. The villain smiled. Go ahead. The villain charged right at Izuku faster than he could process, Dabi and Toga's screams going on deaf ears. The impact was hard, and Izuku bit down on his tongue just to keep from screaming. He wasn't ready to die yet. Okay, we got that done. Woo. Nice. Oh, goodness. But, yay, I did it. Now I'll be working on the next one. Also, if you want to see more of this, you know what to do. Bye.